Hello and welcome to the Firstpost pole position where we discuss all things Formula One and motorsport. It's been a great 2017 Formula One season and we had a lot of exciting times, a lot of dramatic moments, lots of action that happened, and of course, we've been discussing about it all throughout the year. But just to wrap up the season, to look back at what's happened, the moments that stood out for us, especially Lewis Hamilton winning his fourth title. So we're just going to go back and see how the season went. And of course, as usual, to discuss everything about F1, motorsport, and the sport that we all love, I have with me Kunal Shah and Mithila Mehta, our F1 podcasters, writers, experts, and as they're joining us all the way from Norway. Hi guys, it's really good to see you.
Hello.
I'm really excited about this episode. There's a lot of cool stuff that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, so we're going to give out a few awards, so to say, just best moments, best races. And in case you guys want to chip in with your own opinions throughout the show, put it in the comments and we'll take that up as well. So before we just start off, when we started the season, which is way back in March, we made our own predictions, for all of us. We predicted who we thought would be the top three. So let's just see if how we did and how that went. So I'll just pull up the predictions. I think all of us, it's been such a long while. I think none of us remember what actually happened.
Yeah, it's been a long.
Yeah, it's been such a long season. So just to see how we did when we started, because the first preview show that we did was for us to sort of discuss who we think would do well. Okay, so I'll just go over them. Let's see.
I'm a little scared because I don't know what
You guys remember your predictions?
This is like a report card.
Yeah, so okay, so I'll start with Kunal, you, because you picked Hamilton, Vettel, and Raikkonen in that order, and I went with Hamilton, Raikkonen. No, you went with Hamilton, Vettel, and Raikkonen. I went with Hamilton, Raikkonen, and Vettel. Clearly, we had a lot of faith in the Ferraris. And Mithila, you had Hamilton, Vettel, Bottas.
Wow,
as
she
your
got
top three. So I don't know how you did that. You nailed it. I don't know.
I'm feeling very proud of myself.
Is there like an oracle ball that we're missing out on?
We know when we predict for next season and if that works again.
Yeah.
As the person who's a Raikkonen fan, I'm surprised that she didn't have him in her top three predictions.
Yeah, because I clearly put in a lot of faith in both the Ferraris. I expected them. Well, in our defense, Kunal, he did finish fourth. So if not the top three, he made it. It wasn't a just fourth, but he was fourth. But clearly, the Mercedes outpaced the Ferraris. Is what we can conclude, I think, from this season. Do you think it was a great battle initially, and we finally had someone challenge Mercedes in this era, especially? But do you think at the end of the day, you can just say that Mercedes were faster on track?
I would say Mercedes were faster on track. Yes, they were also smarter in the pit lane, in the engineering factory, in their decisions, and when the going got tougher, the tougher got going, and in this case, there was Mercedes that came out tougher as well.
Yeah, and Mithila, your thoughts? Like, do you think in the end we just saw why Mercedes have been so dominant, and where Ferrari just fell short?
Yes, I think Mercedes managed to keep their game together. Even when it looked like Ferrari had the upper hand, when they knew that their car was a diva that needed a lot of handling and managing. Despite all of that, Mercedes kept going. They stuck on. They put their faith behind Lewis Hamilton and they made it work for themselves. So I think on all those fronts, Mercedes are a deserving World Championship winning team. Ferrari will be disappointed, no doubt, but I think that's what the season is all about, that you win some.
So to just refresh viewers' memories and our own memories, that's what we went with last time. So that's a screenshot of. I think that's true because you seem very happy at your prediction, and it was right. So Kudos to you, and I'm glad you at least one of us got that right. But
I must say that the screenshot that you just put up actually has us in the podium finish positions as well. So Mithila,
Wow, Kunal, what an
I had 2 out of 3 right. Okay, so I was second, and I was to her
Yeah.
right, and to her left was you who came third. So I'm really excited to see what we do next season. We should definitely do this because it's just so much of fun.
Yeah, and I had almost forgotten what I said because I remember after testing, the Ferraris seemed like they were up to challenge Mercedes, and that's what pretty much panned out. But obviously, I think my Raikkonen fandom spoke a little too much there. But okay, so just since this is our review of the 2017 season, before we get into more specific moments and more specific races, if you were to just describe the 2017 season we've had in one word, what would you guys pick? I'll let you go.
Okay, I'm going to pick the word anticlimax.
Okay,
That's what the
fair
season
enough.
was for me.
Mithila?
I'm going to go with the word quadruple because we had an hopeful quadruple world champion and a quadruple world champion battling it out, and the outcome is there for everyone to know.
Yeah, I think I'll just go with engaging because as a fan, just speaking as a fan, there's so many moments where you were actually clued into a race and you were eager to see the outcome of it, and especially the first of the season, and also everything that Liberty Media and the sport has sort of been doing through the year to sort of engage more fans and to connect with fans, which really I felt was a great part of this season. So I think that's my word for it. And just let's just continue with these best awards that we're giving out. Your best moment overall.
My best moment overall would be Max Verstappen's win in Malaysia, for the very reason that, in my view, and I'm sure a lot of people agreed with the view back then, this was Red Bull Racing's first win on merit in this hybrid turbo era. So in the past, they've won every time Mercedes or Ferrari have floundered, but Max Verstappen won so dominantly that even Lewis Hamilton post-race said that it was pointless to even fight with Max Verstappen.
That's true. Mithila, if you had to pick your best moment.
I think my favorite moment of the season was actually right at the start. So after the first race of the season, we were all probably expecting it to be, a bit of a battle, but more Mercedes dominant. And Sebastian Vettel really surprised us all when he won the first race of the season. And I think he finished almost 10 seconds ahead of the Mercedes cars. So just to have the season get off to such a flying and exciting start, that was amazing. I was so excited for the rest of the season at that point. We all were, actually.
Yeah, I think that sort of set the tone for the season. And we have a few fans chiming in with us. Hi, Mohan. Hi, Sayed. I hope you're watching. And so in case you've just tuned in, we are reviewing the 2017 season and how things went. And we are picking our favorite moments from the season. So if you have something to contribute, just put it in the comments below and we'll take that up as we go. That was obviously, your favorite moments of the season. But what do you think was the best race, which had everything? The right amount of drama, action, excitement, and maybe a great result?
I think my favorite race, my favorite race would be Baku for a lot of reasons. First, of course, being that Daniel Ricciardo won. Okay. Then he actually overtook 2 or 3 cars into turn 1 while chasing down for the win. Then we, of course, saw Vettel and Lewis Hamilton's rivalry at its peak when Sebastian Vettel drove into Hamilton and what Hamilton thought was disrespectful. And then we had Valtteri Bottas overtake Lance Stroll meters before the finish line for second place. So all in all, Baku was like one of the perfect races that I would show a fan or a friend who's getting involved into Formula One for the very first time. Yeah, that's Daniel Ricciardo up there. Yes.
Oh, dear, he looks so happy. Kunal, I would agree with you. So I was also thinking as you spoke about what my favorite race of the season was. And I think Baku wins simply because it was like It was so exciting. It was so unpredictable, and it was a bit of a freak race, actually.
Yeah.
I can't imagine, Vettel going into Hamilton behind the safety car, and Hamilton losing out on the win because his headrest came loose, and then a very popular winner in Daniel Ricciardo. So I think that was like the high point of the race for a lot of fans.
Yeah, I think you guys have made a very good case of Baku. I think just in terms of the racing, I would maybe just pick up Barcelona because we had a lot of action. Like we had so much that happened, on track, and ultimately, obviously, Hamilton won that race. But just the start that it had, the overtaking in it, the crashes, and all of that. So that's I think something that I would pick as a close second. Maybe I think Baku was definitely one of the more unpredictable races.
If I may add a third, it would be Monaco, because that was a race that woke the Mercedes team up, and they realized that if we have to win this season, we need to deliver, and we need to stretch ourselves far more further as a team, and that's what they ended up doing.
Yeah. So we have a comment that's just coming from Syed. He says, "I'm looking forward to seeing the rivalry between Ferrari and McLaren going forward." Of course, we'll do a whole section on what to look forward to in 2018, and of course, as we build up to the next season, we will talk more about that. But interesting because Ferrari have clearly shown that they are challengers for the title. Can McLaren do the same next season? That's something we would watch out for. That was obviously all the racing, everything, all the action that happened on track. But like I mentioned, there was so much to look forward to even off track this season. We had social media, the Formula One social media team do a really good job. They teamed up with Snapchat. We had Hamilton Instagramming. We had all of that, and we had a lot of celebrities chipping in their own way. But your favorite off track moment that you thought was really nice or sweet or surprising?
My favorite off-track moment would be Max Verstappen overtaking Kimi Raikkonen at the United States Grand Prix. And I remember it was like a last lap Valentino-style maneuver, which helped him grab the third spot on the podium, only to know minutes after that he was actually given a penalty because the ambitious overtaking move actually happened off track. And that brought up topics on discussions on track limits and where drivers should draw the line, etc., etc. But that was probably my most awesome off-track moment, if I may call that.
Mithila, if you had to pick your favorite off-track moment.
Well, I would say that my favorite off-track moment was doing this video show with you guys every single quarter. It's been amazing fun. More seriously, though, I think there are two moments that I was quite excited about. Firstly was the London Live that Formula One had right before the British Grand Prix. And it was very promising because it gave a very strong indication of where Liberty Media wants to take the sport, how it wants to take it closer to the fans, to the big cities, and to the real pulse of racing. I think the second thing that even Nicola, you've been talking about this was the entire swap between McLaren and Toro Rosso and Honda and Renault and how that whole drama played out, and right in the middle of the season. It wasn't in the off season, so that was really exciting for all of us fans. Yeah, Carlos Sainz switched teams immediately.
Yeah. I'm sure there were so many of these, sort of surprising moments, because which is why I think it was such a great time doing this show with you guys, because we got to speak about so many things. I remember Raikkonen's walk in the desert after crashing his car, which became like a meme on social media with everyone, coming up with their own photoshops. And I remember the F1 account themselves tweeted a very funny video. And even though it was upsetting to see that.
I would also add the end of season drama that we saw between Toro Rosso and Renault, where Toro Rosso strongly believed that Renault were giving them under quality engines just because of their fight for sixth place in the championship. And all of these moments just made Formula One fun between the races as well. And that's exactly what Liberty Media is trying to do, to keep up the engagement and interest levels very high between the fortnight gap that we have for every Grand Prix.
Yeah, and Of course, we also saw a lot of wacky, hilarious moments with the radio comments, especially adding to that because we heard the drivers very clearly. So if you had to pick that, if you had to pick something that just stands out because it was so hilarious or so unexpected or so ridiculous, what would you guys go with?
I'd go with Daniel Ricciardo. Everything that Daniel Ricciardo did outside of the car, okay, was memorable, was funny, was wacky, was humorous. He's just brought this different air of ease and air of fun, a fun-loving Formula One driver in the paddock. And yeah, that's actually my most memorable moment. So Daniel Ricciardo picked up Lewis Hamilton's phone while on the podium in Japan. And I don't know how many other drivers would have dared to do that. But not just did he pick up the phone, he went onto Instagram and went live from Lewis Hamilton's Instagram account. And I think that's absolute daredevilry stuff. And the only one who could ever pull this off with so much ease and make it so much fun was Daniel Ricciardo, because we saw he was making faces, on the selfie camera.
It was also really good to see Sebastian Vettel being his most humorous best at the press conference at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. And, we've often spoken about how Vettel has a really wicked sense of humor. He does some really interesting impersonations of Formula One drivers. And he cracked this whole joke about how, he deserves the Fair Play Award for being the best driver on the grid. And then he was like, actually, maybe not.
Yeah, this was the last race press conference, right, where Hamilton said that Formula One should give out a Clown of the Year award. Yeah. And if I was to give a Clown of the Year award, it would probably go to Kevin Magnussen. I'm sorry.
There was this one press conference where he was sitting between Vettel and Hamilton, and he had absolutely nothing to say, and he looked so bored because clearly there were no questions for him. Yes. And this is right after, I think, their incident on track where there was sort of tension between both the drivers. But I remember that Raikkonen pan moment as well. That was something very sweet that they did, and that obviously got them a lot of brownie points because they actually went out of the way to make sure that fans were taken care of. And just to see that little boy light up when he saw his hero sort of to right in front of him, that was sweet. And that, I think, is something that would stay with a lot of fans after this season. Of course, there were also a little, when we're talking about all these highs, there were plenty of lows as well. We talked about lots of penalties. We talked about, maybe teams not really sticking to the rules. But if you had to just pick a moment where you feel that, if this had not happened, the sport would have been better off from the season that's gone by, or maybe just something that you think wasn't fair or wasn't cool, what would that be?
Well, if I could pick two, the first would be McLaren Honda, because clearly we've been missing McLaren battling up at the front. But, like I keep saying, that the McLaren Honda has actually brought out the humorous best in Fernando Alonso. So you win some, you lose some. But honestly, the one very disappointing moment was the manner in which Danny Kivat was dropped by Toro Rosso. So we all know how his Formula One dream turned into a nightmare last year and then this year. And instead of, working with him and trying to get him up to shape, and I'm sure Toro Rosso tried their best, as did Red Bull, they just dropped him like, a hot potato, or maybe in this case, a cold potato. And I don't know what Danny Kivat is going to do next. We'll talk about it later in the show. But that was definitely a moment that Red Bull could have probably avoided. We know they're ruthless with their drivers and they like that. But in this case, Red Bull clipped his wings.
Yeah. Mithila, maybe your disappointing moment?
I think the entire spat between Kevin Magnussen and Nico Hulkenberg was it was really disappointing, actually. And the fact that there was like verbal abuse being flung at each other, and there were like some pretty unsavory moments there on camera and all of that. Especially keeping in mind that, A, Formula One is trying to attract younger audiences. B, there is, as the pinnacle of motorsport, as they like to call themselves, there is some respect that needs to be around attached to the sport. And it really didn't help Kevin Magnussen's cause because his equity in the paddock is anyway so low. And then for him to be engaging in this kind of behavior, like, it's almost like suicide in a manner of saying. So it was very disappointing.
Yeah, I think just the whole McLaren Honda partnership for the way it ended, after 3 years of expectations and anticipation, and ultimately a divorce between the two teams, which was as early as September. We knew that the partnership is ending. I think it was disappointing, especially for Alonso fans, who had their hopes out. But hopefully they can turn it around in 2018. That's obviously one thing to look forward to.
Yeah.
This season was also full of
we can't
surprises.
But we can't end this section of most disappointing, unfortunate moment by not addressing the elephant of the season, which was Vettel driving into Hamilton in Baku, which initially everyone thought that Hamilton brake tested Vettel, etc., and then Vettel back to him, and then of course then the start at Singapore. So these two moments, had they not happened, and it's always good to look back at the championship in retrospect. But had these moments not happened, we would have seen a different end to the Formula One World Championship. I'm not saying Vettel would have won, but I'm saying that at least the battle would have existed till the closing races of the season, and that's why I described 2017 as a bit of an anticlimax.
Yeah, I think Singapore was when it swung in sort of Hamilton's favor. We had to pick a turning point maybe, but I think till that moment it was a pretty good season by all standards. So, but as I mentioned, it had a lot of surprising moments as well. We were quite shocked at how things went a lot of times during the season. So, your maybe driver or incident that just surprised you or you were not expecting?
Easiest to remember what Lewis Hamilton did to Valtteri Bottas in Hungary, because we keep hearing of how if you want to be a multiple world champion, you have to be ruthless, you have to be selfish, you have to be aggressive, you got to look out only for yourself, etc., etc. But when Lewis Hamilton actually gave the podium spot back to Valtteri Bottas, even somebody like a Niki Lauda turned around and said that, listen, maybe Lewis is going to regret losing these 3 points to Bottas, but the karmic benefit of this is what probably acted upon Lewis's campaign later on in the season, and this was definitely one of the most heartwarmingly surprising moments for me from the season.
Mithila, maybe your pick for something that really surprised you and you weren't expecting.
I think the most surprising thing that set the tone for this season was the fact that Nico Rosberg retired last season, and we continued to see ripple effects of that all through this season. I think the other thing that I was very surprised about was Lance Stroll actually claiming the podium this season. We made a lot of fun of him, and we continue to do that occasionally when he performs way under par. But at the same time, he is the only driver outside the top 3 teams to have scored a podium this season. Even Force India, for all their points and double finishes, did not manage that. So it was surprising. It was nice. It was a little bit of a triumph for the underdog, so to speak. So, yeah.
I would say I was just very pleasantly surprised by Esteban Ocon's performance. I know you guys are huge fans of him, and you're really looking forward to what he does in 2018. But just the fact that he came under as nobody knew what he was capable of. He's a young teenager, very new to the sport, and obviously that Formula One seat next to Sergio Perez, he was under a lot of pressure, and he held his own a lot of times in the season. Especially that radio message where he just goes "What is he doing?" I think I'm not going to forget that. But yeah, I mean, it was really good to see Force India, have that consecutive 4th place finish, have those double points finish, and they continue to, make the most of what they have. And of course, Esteban Ocon was a big part of that. So for me, that was a very surprising aspect that I really did not see coming. And it made for a great story for Indian fans of the sport as well. So that was nice. And, just looking at the season overall, there's someone who's asked us, what was your highlight of 2017? Syed's put up that question. If we can just look back and talk about how the season went, and looking forward to 2018.
Yeah, I think Sayed should actually tune in again into the show from 00.00. But anyway, my point is there were lots of highlights. And, since you were talking of Esteban Ocon, he was definitely one of my bigger highlights from the season. And I'm excited to see what Esteban Ocon could do in 2018, because let's remember, Mercedes has a potential seat in 2019, which may be hotly contested by Bottas, Ricciardo, and Ocon. And I somewhere get the feeling that if Ocon does what he did in 2017, if he repeats it in 2018, he might just get the promotion ahead of even something like a Daniel Ricciardo.
Yeah, and interestingly, we've been talking about what to look forward to in 2018. So there's another question that he's asking about: will the teams remain the same, or are we going to see any changes? Because we saw plenty of those in the season. So going ahead, we know the drivers who signed up, who've extended their contracts, and we also know Sauber's already announced a new driver for next season. What other changes are we expecting, or what are, if you guys could just recap what we know so far going ahead?
Sure. So I think that the form factor will definitely change next season, because teams would have learned this season. They know where to improve, what their weaknesses are, etc., etc. They will push the envelope further in terms of engineering innovation, something that Formula One has always been known about. So I do expect the top order to remain the same, but they will be closer as well. And my gut feeling tells me, and I know Nicola is going to now play this again for predictions for next season, that Ferrari would have found their way around their reliability issues, and they know that if they can work around their reliability, they probably have the faster car than Mercedes. Having said that, Mercedes is not going to be sitting and hatching eggs and celebrating Christmas through the entire winter. And although I must say that with the Renault power, I'm curious to see what McLaren can do. It will be extremely tough for Force India to still stick on to fourth position next season. And the one big announcement that I'm still waiting for, and I hope it really happens, is that of Robert Kubica. If he makes a heroic comeback to Formula One with Williams, I can tell you 2018 has already gotten too interesting for me right now.
Yeah. Mithila, as even Kunal mentioned, it was a bit of the anticlimactic end. So do you think maybe there's a way that Formula One could maybe fix that, maybe have more overtaking, as drivers have obviously been asking for it, where we heard Hamilton say that, it was almost impossible to overtake in Abu Dhabi, I think. Do you think maybe that they should change around something to just ensure that the season does not end on such a note?
I agree actually, because the season ending so early and so dully, it doesn't go well for the sport or the fans or for anyone for that matter. The fact is, Liberty Media is well aware of this, and they've also spoken about this. Kunal and I have discussed DRS several times, as something that is maybe taking away from racing in its pure sense. At the same time, Liberty Media has spoken about how they want to make cars follow each other more closely, just so that they can keep pace, so that we have more overtaking in the real sense and not the manufactured sense. And hopefully this would kind of translate into closer races and hence a closer season. This is obviously not a fix that would come just in the first season. It's more like a journey that they've undertaken. But I know that they're thinking about it, and I'm excited to see what's in store for all of us fans.
Yeah, and this was sort of almost the honeymoon period for Liberty Media, because it was like their first season in charge, first full season in charge. And now going ahead, they have bigger concerns to address, obviously. But what do you think they've gotten right so far, and what do they still need to do going ahead?
I think in my view, they've got the marketing part of Formula One pretty right, because like you mentioned about social media, and like you mentioned about the fan engagement that they've been doing, during races, between races, after races, on television, on social media, they've pretty much fixed what Bernie Ecclestone never believed he needed to do. He never believed that Formula One needed to market its own self. And Liberty Media have come and fixed that. But the tougher part for them to fix is what Mithila just spoke about, which is fixing the product of Formula One. Fans want exciting races. I mean, Max Verstappen, of course, has turned around and said he'd love to dominate Formula One the way, like the way Lewis Hamilton did. But hey, that's the driver's perspective. If you ask the fans, we'd love to see unpredictability. We'd love to see more competition. We'd love to see more close wheel-to-wheel battles. And if this means that Liberty Media gets into changing how the cars behave, when they're together on track, maybe they should look into that. And we actually know that they're looking into that. The other aspect they also look into is, for example, tracks like Abu Dhabi, which are spectacles. You race in the sunset and the lights come on. But can you make certain changes to the track where you allow for more overtaking opportunities rather than sticking to processional racing? So fixing the product is always going to be more fun. Liberty Media is going to face even more challenges because Formula One is pretty democratic in its ways, and it's one of those rare sports where the participants are allowed to make the rules. So let's remember, it's got that additional layer of politics involved. And it's easier said than done. We know that Ferrari have already issued quit threat. So one doesn't know how they're going to fix it, but they definitely have to look to fix it sooner than later.
Yeah. And of course, on the innovation side, we are going to see the Halo cockpit make its appearance now. Opinions still remain divided, but we spoke about how we think safety first. And that's something that we are obviously looking forward to. But anything in terms of what the cars, the engines, or the tires, like the technical aspect of sport, do you think maybe they need to tinker or change something for 2018?
They definitely need to work around the aerodynamics because the cars are so aero-dependent that when you get close into the car, when you have two cars close to each other, and the dirty, turbulent air from the leading car impacts the car that follows. You're of course not going to have drivers wanting to go close and attempt an overtaking maneuver, unless of course you're Max Verstappen. But you've got to make it easier for the drivers to not get so impacted by following the car. So they will have to definitely work around the aerodynamic structures of the racing cars.
Yeah. Mithila, obviously we've seen the sport get younger. With Felipe Massa's retirement, we just have, I think, there are just 6 drivers left who are 30 plus. And we have 8 drivers who are under 25, with 5 of them even being under the age of 21. And Charles Leclerc obviously is the newest addition to that young lot. Are you seeing maybe, and obviously Verstappen's the leading man from those guys, but do you think one of these guys could maybe spring a surprise or, be on the podium next season as well?
Yeah, I'm actually excited because, while the big guys, namely Vettel and Hamilton, have been battling it out, there are younger drivers who've really been making their mark. Max Verstappen, crucially, but yes, there are a lot of others who've been getting opportunities. Perhaps 2018 will be the last year we see Kimi Raikkonen on the grid. And, the fact is, I really hope he goes out with a roar and not just a whimper. Setting, vacating place for the younger guys to come in, but not just bowing out simply like that. And, just to add on to the conversation that you guys were having about Liberty Media and the future of Formula One, I find it really interesting that Liberty Media is actually leveraging the equity of its drivers and teams. I always feel that Bernie Ecclestone was too scared to do that because he was scared that the drivers and the teams would become bigger than the sport and leave him redundant. Liberty Media is not scared to do that. So whether it's cashing in on Kimi Raikkonen's fandom with the younger fans or leveraging the content, the fun side of Daniel Ricciardo, they're not scared to do that, and that's serving the sport really well. We also know that 2018 has Pirelli bring a whole new bouquet of tire compounds for us. This is going to complicate life a little bit for us fans and make it a bit harder for us to actually understand the strategies that are happening in real time on track. But I think it'll be better for teams from the lens that it'll be easier for them to find a tire compound that suits their car perfectly. And, hopefully it would lead to more engagement on track.
Yeah. And of course, while the season, we have between seasons, but we will be having more in-depth conversations, more articles, more opinions from Kunal and Mithila as well as on the show. But before we sign off, what are you guys most excited about for the 2018 season?
I would say I'm most excited about Esteban Ocon. because he is a phenomenal driver. But let me actually take a step back. I'm most excited about the young drivers that have
Mhm.
been in Formula One in the last 12, 15, 18 months. We saw Charles Leclerc be announced with Sauber. We know that Lance Stroll is there, and I'm
Yeah.
still mixed opinions on whether he's talent only or he's got money bags and hence he's a talent. So various other things. We know that Toro Rosso has actually, got Pierre Gasly, who's former GP2 champion, and then we've got Brendan Hartley as well, who's not all that young in
Yeah.
Formula One terms, but he's still young in Formula One terms. It's still going to be his first full season next year, which then makes me think that Marcus Ericsson is going to be the only so-called paid driver on the grid next season. I don't know how long he's going to last because I certainly believe that Ferrari is going to work really hard to try and get Antonio Giovinazzi into Marcus Ericsson's seat as soon as they can. So
Yeah.
all in all, I'm really excited about all the young talent that we're going to see in 2018 because once the Vettels and the Hamiltons and the Raikkonens and Alonsos of the world go, I'm pretty sure we're going to have an Ocon versus a Leclerc versus a Verstappen, fighting for the world championship, say about 5 or maybe 7 years or hopefully earlier down the line.
Yeah. Mithila, what are you most excited about in 2018?
I'm actually extremely excited about the 2018 silly season because we know that a lot of contracts are opening up in 2019. There's going to be a lot of movement in the top teams, and it's going to be exciting to see our favorite drivers in new cars.
Yeah, and of course, it's the off season, but we will continue to bring you everything from the world of Formula One, and of course, we extended our coverage to Formula E as well. So, if you want to check out how the all electric series is doing, head to Firstpost to read up on what Kunal and Mithila have to say, and of course, just to keep in track with the sport. Thank you guys. Thank you so much for joining for this really fun episode after a whole season of the Firstpost pole position show. It's been great having you, and I hope I see you again very soon. Thank you so much for watching as well. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Nikhila.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.